Welcome back to another episode of Mr. Rocks. Today we're going to make some changes in our PhatKids game tutorial. This is an action script tower defense game. This is lesson 12. And in this lesson we're going to make changes to bullets. So each turret is going to be firing its own type of bullet. We're going to make some changes in how we communicate which type of turret we're firing. And we're going to add a health bar to the enemies. So let's go ahead and run the game right now to see what's going on. And when I drag a tower out to the stage, notice that the enemies have a health bar now, and as a bullet hits the health bar is changing in size. And so until it gets all the way down to 0, and now when the life points get down to 0 for the enemy then disappears. And so that's a change. And that's an important change. Notice also that when the enemy disappears, my bank value is going to go up. And so certain enemies have different values, and so each enemy is going to have its own life points and so forth. And let's take a look and see where that happens. If I come into my enemy class, notice that I have a health bar, and the health bar, let's take a moment and go back into my FLA file and see what that looks like. So if I come into my health bar, it's a very simple picture. It's a rectangle with an outline, and actually it is a red rectangle, and I put this green bar over it. And so this green bar is right inside, right covering up the red. And so all I'm going to do is I'm going to change the width of the green bar, and as it begins to shrink, we'll see the red bar show up behind it. And the way that I do that is that first of all, I have to make an instance of my health bar. So I just call that guy HB, and I come over here. I have created my health bar back in the FLA file, and of course I have said that I am sharing that for ActionScript, and my ActionScript linkage is health bar. Okay, so that's fine. In any case, now that I've got that guy, I notice that in enemy, I create my instance, I am giving it an X coordinate, I'm giving it a Y coordinate, and then I add child HB, and what this is doing is, since I'm doing this inside the enemy class, I'm adding the health bar to the enemy. So every enemy that I create will get its own health bar. More importantly, down here I have created an instance of life points and bank points, and you'll notice I'm passing those in to the constructor function. Now, before I just had my waypoints. Now I've got life points and I've got bank points being set in to the constructor. And so I have private fields up here, life points and bank points. I set those guys equal to, let's see, I can say this dot if I want. And so I set these guys up, and oh, actually I don't need that for full, my bad. In any case, so I have life points, bank points, and down here I have getters and setters. So I have set life points, that's my input parameter, LP, so life points get set to whatever I set it to from elsewhere in the program, get life points, and then change life points, just like we did with the turret. We're doing the same thing now for the enemies. But this is different, and this is this life points plus equals, let's see, change points. And then I say HP dot green bar. Remember, green bar is a rectangle, just a green rectangle that's inside the health bar, and I'm simply going to change its width. Its width is going to be the green bar dot width is equal to the green bar dot width times, and then I have this little guy where I say the life points, the current life points divided by the full health. So basically I'm going to get a percentage of the life points. As the life points decrease, that percentage is going to go down below 100, and that's all you have to do to get your health bar functional. And then every time a bullet hits an enemy, based on the number of points, the number of hit points in the bullet. Remember, we're going to have different bullets coming out of different turrets, so each turret will affect that bar based on how powerful the bullets are coming out of a particular turret. Okay, so we're going to see that working when we set up our bullets a little bit later in the program. Okay, in this next section we're going to go ahead and get ready to start making different bullets, or we want to have different turrets fire different bullets, and in order to do that I need to send another parameter, and I'm not comfortable with the number of parameters. Notice in the public function turret in the constructor I already have 3 parameters, and I don't want to keep adding more and more here, and so one of the ways that I can deal with this is I can create a new class. So I'm going to say new, come down to an ActionScript3 class, and say OK. Oh, I have to give this guy a name. I'm going to call this class turret settings. This is going to be a very simple class, and it's going to be interesting how this works. Turret settings is simply going to have some fields in it. It won't even need to have any constructor function. All it needs to tell me is when I create an instance of this, it's going to give me a bullet type. And I can add all kinds of things to this, but right now I'll start off with just bullet type, and bullet type is going to be a number. And the second thing is it'll have a second public field, and the second public field is going to be the range. And so I don't have to pass these anymore in the constructor. I can deal with this right here. Okay, now how do I get access to this? It's interesting that in turret, if I create an instance of turret settings, and I can do that right up here. I'll go ahead and say public. I'm going to create a variable called turret settings. So I'll just say TS for turret settings. That's going to be of type turret settings. And that's equal to new turret settings. Again with parentheses. And that all spelled correctly. That looks okay. And so now I've got this guy TS, and he is going to hold turret settings. Now, the thing about this is I've got all these different turrets. Oh, I've got to give this guy a name. Let me come back to the script, hit Control S, and it's going to say turret settings. I'll go ahead and save that in my lesson 12. And this guy is good to go. Now, I don't have any values here yet. But what I can do is that when is turret created? Well, it's created, I'm not creating this guy directly. What's happening is I'm creating, for instance, turret 1 or turret 2 or turret 3, whichever turret I happen to be creating. Let's see if I open turret 1 again and see how that's done. So let's say back in PhatKids I'm creating a new instance of turret 1, and let's say that guy's right here. The super constructor is sending in 3 parameters. It's sending in range, bullet hit points, and cost, and that gets sent in, and turret gets it. So when turret 1 creates those values, this guy gets values for specific to turret 1. When turret 2 creates, it gets values specific to turret 2, and so forth. And so what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to create, I've already created an instance of this guy, and so now I can set those guys equal to something. For instance, if I were to say this.ts turret settings, and I say .bullet type, and I can set that equal to a specific value. Let's say 1, for instance. Okay, well that wouldn't make sense, because now if I've got turret 1, who's creating this guy? Turret 1's going to use this, turret 2, turret 3, and turret 4. So it wouldn't make sense to do it here. But what I can do is back in turret 1, I can gain access, and I can say back in here, for instance, I can say TS, even though I haven't instantiated here, it's created in my superclass, and in here I can say bullet type is equal to 1. And so that means turret 1 is going to get bullet 1, turret 2 will get bullet 2, and so forth. And the same thing with the range. I can just set this guy, I can set the range here and say TS again. The instances back in the bullet type, I'm sorry, the turret type, but in turret 1, I'm going to say range is equal to whatever the range is for this particular turret. And so I have control now with each turret to have its own bullet type. Each bullet is going to have its own hit points, and so forth. And that's how I'm going to control which bullet is being sent. So let me go ahead and type this all in, and then we'll go ahead and take a look at it. Okay, in this next section we're going to change things around a little bit. We've already created our turret settings class, and the reason we did this is I was just sending too many parameters in through the super, and so this is a way to get around that inside my turret. I have gotten rid of now all of these input parameters. Notice that my constructor function has no parameters coming into it, so cost and bullet hit points and range. And if I go to turret settings, notice that I've got bullet type and range right here. And so for turret 1, when I create turret 1, I'm going to set those up. I go ahead and create the instance of turret settings that I've already created back in the turret method, or turret class rather. And so now I create bullet type is equal to 1 for turret 1, bullet type will be equal to 2 for turret 2, and so forth. And the range I can set here so that each turret will have its own range. Okay, so now when I come back into turret, if I want to go to make my bullet, here I want to go ahead and send in the X and the Y location and the rotation, but I also want to send in the bullet number. Well, how do I know that? Well, again, I'm going to go to my turret settings, which in this case I've created an instance of turret settings, which is TS, so that's right here. And in turret settings, notice I do have bullet type. So I just say TS, which is turret settings, TS, and I'm going to say bullet type, and I'm ready to go. So now I'm sending in these 4 parameters into the make bullet function, which is back in my PhatKids class. Remember, parent is movie clip is the way that I get back to my PhatKids class. So let's go back to PhatKids now, and I've already made the changes there. So make bullet now has this new chunk, which is a switch statement. Switch statement effectively works like a long if-then or if-else statement, and so I take this guy and I call it bullet number, and bullet number is going to be of one of these 4 cases. The default cases is just the generic bullet, but if it is case 1, if my bullet number is 1, that means this is being sent from turret 1, and it's going to create a new bullet 1. Now over here in my FLA file, remember, I've created all these different bullets, so let's go ahead and see what these guys look like. I've got my carrot is being sent as bullet 1, bullet is just the generic bullet, broccoli is bullet 2, and so forth. And so I've got these guys that my toys are going to be throwing these different shaped bullets, which are going to be throwing healthy food at the junk food. Okay? So now I'm going to come back here, and I see that when I create a bullet 1, I can send this. Well, what is 20? Why is this 40? Why is this 80? Why is this 160? Well, since I'm creating a new bullet, let's go look and see what bullet 1 takes in. Bullet 1 takes in hit points. And so as I create each one of these bullets, each bullet will get its own hit points. I'll send that up to the constructor. Bullet's going to receive this in. And so this guy needs to receive in hit points, which is going to be type number. And now each bullet will have its own hit points. Okay. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and think that that's going to settle that. Let's see what else we need to do. If I go back and remember that when I add the turret, another thing that's changed is the cost. So let's go back and take a look at PhatKids and notice that when I created my turrets originally, let's see, those are my enemies. Here they are. I originally had return new turret 1, and turret 1 had these 3 parameters. I don't need these anymore. If you remember what these are, let's go to turret 1 and see what those were. Turret 1, ooh, I've already gotten rid of them here. Turret 1 took in some information, and I don't need that information right now. So all of this stuff, the life points, the health points, and so forth, I can get rid of all of that. And now with my turret settings, I don't need to have any input value here whatsoever. I can store all of that stuff in turret settings, and so all of these guys can be set up just like this. Notice I do have here the cost 100, 200, 300, and 400. So that's getting passed in when I create a new turret. Let's see if I go to tile, I'm still getting in the function. I'm still getting 3 parameters here. One of them is cost, and another change that I've made is right here where I add the cost. I just taken the cost. So here it used to say t.getCost turret. So I made a change here. Instead of t.getCost, in other words, getting the cost of the turret, since I'm sending in the cost right here, if I create turret 1, turret 2, or turret 3, I'm going to pass that in here. The reason I need to know the cost of the turret is that every time I create a new turret, I'll send that cost into the method add turret. Again, this refers back to PhatKids. This is my add turret method back there. So let's go to PhatKids and see what's happening. I've got my add turret right here, and it's got T, which is the turret type, but it also wants to add in the cost. Why? Well, the reason I'm dealing with the cost, let's see, I think that was back in tile, my bad. The reason I need to send in the cost is because I need to take away money from the bank. So every time I create a new turret, remember, first I'm checking to see that I have enough money to create the turret, but if I do have enough money, I want to take that out of the bank. So I'll do that back in PhatKids. PhatKids, remember, is where I created my bank. And so if I look back way up here on top, I've got bank value. And so now when from the tile class, I go to make turret. Let's see if I can find that, or add turret, I guess. I need to also pass in a new parameter here, which is going to be C. That's going to be a number, and that's going to be my cost. And so the bank value is now going to be, instead of negative T get cost, I can just go ahead and say negative C. Okay? So that's what's going to be happening with this. Let's go ahead and see if all of this is working. I got some mistakes. Let me go back and see what I can do to change that, and I'll be right back. Okay, the last thing that we're going to go ahead and just mention in this particular video is the only thing that wasn't working before was that I had to go ahead and, in the demonstration, I just changed the parameters in one of the turrets and one of the enemies. And so what I had to do is go back in, and for instance, if I go into turret 1, let's go down here at the bottom, I had to do a couple of things. I had to go into turret 1, I had to get rid of all the parameters in here, I had to get rid of the parameters in here, and I had to add the bullet type and the range in here. So this is where I can set the different type of bullet. And of course I had to do that for all 4 turrets. And then likewise for the enemies, if I go into my enemies, I notice that I have some changes that I made there too. And so for instance, these guys do still have parameters, and I'm sending those in. So those are life points, the waypoints as we had before, the life points and the bullet points. And then finally, or the bank points rather, and then finally we had inside of the bullet itself, inside the bullet, I'm going to be receiving these hit points, and so for each of the bullets I had to put that in. And again, I do that in 2 places. For bullet 1, for instance, I have to, and that's not bullet 1. I should get rid of that guy, so let's try that again. Open up and go into bullet 1, and notice bullet 1 now has an input parameter, because when I'm making bullets, I'm sending it the value of hit points for each particular bullet, and then I have to send that on up to the constructor, or through the super, by using the super command. So that's it for right now. Let's go ahead and run the program and see what it's looking like. If I take this guy out, he's going to shoot bullet 1, which are carrots. If I take this guy out, he's going to shoot bullet 2, which is broccoli, and so on. And so these guys are going to shoot according to whichever bullet type they have. And we can see this seems to be working out okay. Okay, that's it for today. Bye-bye.